Hello, I am the Movie Maestro, and welcome to a rather special film review. The first time I have an opinion of a film where my opinion is only moderate. Early in the year 2012, a film that was given a moderate amount of hype did get a lukewarm critical success and a moderate box office success, and it's one of the most recent films to use Liam Neeson in his typical fallback role. And though the setup is interesting, I wouldn't be surprised that a lot of people felt very let down by what the ultimate outcome was. With that said, though, there's some recommendable qualities in this film. But for those of you who have heard about this film for what you're probably expecting it is going to be, then chances are you're going to be disappointed. But in any case, let us talk about The Grey. Liam Neeson plays a somewhat suicidal man who has recently been hired at an Alaskan oil rig to defend the territory from any wolves that happen by. On the way back home with his co-workers, however, the plane crashes, leaving him with only a handful of survivors stranded in the wilderness beyond the point of any good chance of help. So, for the next few days they have to wander through the wilderness and try and fend for themselves until they find civilization. And, as luck would have it, they happen to crash land right in the middle of the territory of a major pack of wolves, who determinedly pursues them and picks off the team one by one, which adds a lot more tension to the scenario. And it lends itself to a rather interesting but ultimately muddled thriller film. An interesting one, though, nonetheless. Well, what is it that works about this film? Well, for one thing, it has a palpable atmosphere. The cinematography is unbelievable. As soon as the plane crashes and the survivors are stranded in the wilderness, the cold and the bitterness and the isolation of the location is very well felt. The cinematography plays a great part building it up and making it feel like it's there with the audience. And it stays that way for pretty much the remainder of the film. Also, the feelings of suicidal tendencies that Liam Neeson's character has are hard not to feel as well, surprisingly. And that is also helped by the very minimalistic but very unearthly sounding musical score by Mark Streitenfeld. Also, the threat of the wolves does feel pretty legitimate as well, considering as dozens upon dozens of people are picked off one by one. In fact, it sounds an awful lot like a certain famous Ridley Scott film from 1979, but I'm not sure what it is. So yeah, it's basically the plot of Alien. A small band of people stranded somewhere with a monster around. They don't know where it is. It keeps jumping out at random, picking them off one by one. There's one person who's a leader, but people are having a difficult time following. Yeah, it's pretty basic and very similar in that way, but it kind of makes sense because Ridley Scott was, in fact, one of the producers of this film. With that said, however, in spite of the fact that it does have the same setup, the major difference aside from setting and the monster chasing them is that in this one there's really only one character that's interesting, and that's the character Liam Neeson plays. And it's really just because it's Liam Neeson playing what he usually does. It's nothing out of the ordinary form. It's still an interesting enough character, but for those of you who are familiar with what Liam Neeson usually does when he isn't stepping out of his comfort zone, nothing will come as that much of a surprise. Stoic, tough, been through hell, trying to put it all behind him, forced into a difficult situation. He's a natural leader, barking orders at everybody, but people find it difficult to trust because there's something strangely suspicious. He says everything in a very calm, matter-of-fact tone, no matter what the situation is. It's Liam Neeson being his usual Liam Neeson character. But again, it does leave a little bit of an impression, though not that much. Because all of the characters in the film are male, there's a lot of opportunities for the testosterone to run wild, and there's an awful lot of swearing. So in many ways, this is a man's movie. But at the same time, it doesn't really pay off the way that I think a lot of people expect it to. because it was very much played up like it was going to be an action film where they have to face off wolves with nothing except their bare hands, and ultimately it just doesn't come through to that. It is more of just a simple survival of the fittest film, and in fact whenever a wolf attack scene is about to happen, even if the jump scare may still be startling, it's hard not to picture the death happening at any moment. It's pretty easy to figure out when someone's going to get killed. And the wolves themselves aren't that incredible looking either. In fact, they look like they just stepped off of the set from Twilight, which mercifully are kept in shadow so not too much is seen, but they don't look very real in that way. So again, pulls off the Alien trick where they're always in the shadows and the shots of them are very quick, so there's not a lot of time to get a good focus on them, but still, what little that's seen is enough to show that they aren't very remarkable designs. It's weird that wolves are very difficult to handle in CG for some reason, but there you go. On top of that, like I said before, Liam Neeson's the only interesting character. Every other character in this film is just completely forgettable, and really, they're just there to be killed by the wolves. And it's a shame when films do that, whether it is an action film or a survival of the fittest film, when there are characters that are clear from the beginning are just there to die for whatever reason, be it picked up by the monster or the wilderness claims them. So this film is very devoid on surprises, even though the suspense does work in many places. And again, it is not an action film. People who are expecting it to end with Liam Neeson fighting off the wolves, it doesn't come to anything. The build-up, so-called, to when he's about to fight the wolves, that's the end. It just cuts off before the actual fight starts, and I suppose the audience is left to assume that he was killed in the struggle. With that said, however, it's not like the film is completely devoid of stuff worth seeing. The atmosphere is effective if you do want a film that does keep you on edge a little, and it's got great cinematography, the setup is interesting, and there's a couple philosophical aspects to it, surprisingly enough, that here and there do work okay enough, I guess. On the whole, The Grey has potential to be more than it is, but ultimately comes across as something just okay, minimally. So, even though I'm sure there are some people who are going to enjoy it, some people who are going to absolutely hate it, I say that there are a couple things that are worth checking out, but I can't say that it's worth too much time spent on it, especially if you cannot stand films where they are meant to make you feel uncomfortable. But even then, there's not too many surprises, like I've said before. It's really only truly worth seeing if you enjoy seeing Liam Neeson being his usual fallback character and being put into a situation much like Ridley Scott's Alien. So, on the whole, it's not a terrible film or anything, but it's kind of mediocre. And in that sense, that's probably one of the worst crimes a film can commit. Though, I won't say that it's completely devoid of admirable qualities. On the worth meter, I'd give it a worth borrowing. And out of 5, I'd give this 2.5 out of 5. It's an average film. Thank you for your time.